I'm going to start the recording. Oh my God, I did everything.
It's fantastic.
Terribly impressed.
This is a great Thursday morning, and I'm so looking forward to the weekend.
Oh, me too. Why is that? Why are we?
I think we go a mile a minute, hit the ground running Monday morning, and you don't, and this is, I think, a COVID thing, right? We don't pause, we don't disconnect. This week, I actually tried very hard to actually power off my laptop at 7 and just say, like, enough with that.
Good morning. Hey, Amanda, Irene, Jason's here. Jean, Lisa, and Rosie. I don't know Rosie. Do you know Rosie?
I don't know Rosie.
Rosie, you have to tell us about you now. And I don't know Jean too. First time here. Nice. Rosie, tell us what you do, because we get to know everybody.
Well, it's only fair.
To Aisha, she's getting an award tonight.
Oh, thank you. Just the award that I've gotten is officially being presented, so I'm pretty excited.
The one that says you are the most fabulous solopreneur in the state of New Jersey. That one?
Yeah, that one.
I love that one. That's my favorite.
Yeah. I'm pretty blown away. I'm excited.
That's awesome. I am so excited for you, which leads us to we'll start up our discussion. Welcome to Empowering Women Entrepreneurs. We have the now famous and award-heavy Aisha Hamilton, the owner at Hamilton Law, and she specializes her practice in employment law. I'm Alisa McCabe. I'm the owner at First Steps Financial, and we keep small businesses financially organized, streamlining their processes, and educating them on their finances. Today, everything that we're talking about, it's just our opinion. Sorry, can't take it to the market. Today, we're talking about managing the right balance with work relationships, being popular at work, women sabotaging women, boundaries, drinks after work, Zoom calls. And, do you lack objectivity? And so not taking things personally, and do we need to should we be developing a thicker skin to things or not? So
it's a good conversation. So listen, here's the question, right? You strike me as being someone outside of your own workplace, but in your prior jobs, as being someone who's friendly and popular and just friends with everybody, right? No judgments. Do you think there's a problem with that? Is there a disadvantage to being the popular person at work?
Yeah, I don't think of myself as popular, but being friendly can have its problems.
Yeah.
It can. I think that in past jobs, it has, well, actually, when we used to interact with other people, it was sometimes a problem. I would have a problem, as everyone has noticed, I laugh a lot. And apparently that some people would take that as encouragement that I wanted to talk more with them. And they would have ideas that I had no clue that they were getting ideas about. That was very disturbing. Not so much anymore. So this environment's great.
Talking about men.
But with women, I think I actually, and one of my best friends told me when she first met me, she was afraid of me because she thought I was going to be like this mean girl. She goes, "You were just nice." She goes, "You were like too nice." She goes, "I was worried about you." I was like, really? So people cannot trust that, like, that being friendly like that. What about you? I mean, you work in a very male heavy environment and like making relationships there, especially work relationships.
Yeah, I don't have the problems you have.
Because you don't laugh enough. That's the problem. Is you get Aisha giggling, that'd be it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like another aspect of looking at it, right? And this sort of leads in a little bit with our conversation of women who don't help women. But if you're perceived as being too favored by the leadership, I wonder if that then sort of puts a target on your back when it comes to your peers, when it comes to sort of other women who are feeling like, oh, well, there's only one seat at the table or two seats at the table, and she's getting it.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot. You can't just sort of walk around life being happy and friendly and uh, oblivious to the fact that there's risk that goes with it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you don't do it.
Right.
It doesn't mean you don't go out for the positions you want to go out for, and that you don't develop the friendships and the connections that you need to develop. I think you just need to be aware of what's out there.
Yes.
And it is kind of silly. It still blows my mind that we have, in this day and age, still women unwilling to help other women.
I actually just spoke with a woman that she worked for a big company. And when she had her son, she said, can I work from home, a couple of days? And they allowed it. And a woman that she worked with asked for the same thing. And they said, no, she took the only position for that. And okay, it was terrible when it happened. And she was so upset. And she, like that actually pits those two women against each other.
Right.
And so how she took it was, when she became a boss, she would never do that. So I wonder if there's always lessons in having adversity.
Right.
The person who's picked on or the person who has something done wrong to them is usually, if they learn from it, are the most sympathetic, and the people are saying, I need to change this.
I've seen it go the other way too. Well, I had to
know.
pay my dues, so what makes you think you get off easy? You should have to fight for it too.
And sometimes they call it grit.
Right.
You made, you and I were talking about that. They disguise it as, well, you need grit to do this.
Right.
And it's not grit. That's not the definition of grit.
Yeah.
It's not people being jerks.
I'll tell you, starting, in COVID, we're a year out now. So April, May, June, July of last year, I was peppered with calls from senior level women executives, right? So you're talking managerial level, even VP level, director level, who were being told, yeah, you have to, we're all working from home now, but meetings still have to happen during the day. And these are women with younger children who needed to also then take on the role of homeschool teacher, right? And they didn't have childcare options. And there was just no understanding for that, right?
No.
And some of these managers who were calling the shots saying no too bad were women.
Oh. So how can we use the friendships that we've developed? Because I think in work, I think you do make some friendships. And how do we know which one of those friendships we can count on, especially in this situation? Because they're going to start calling people back to work.
Right.
And as you and I have discussed many times, the way the things are now with Zoom and working from home, it has helped quite a few people. So what relationships, how can you decipher what relationships are true relationships or power relationships?
But I think you have to work hard to develop mentoring relationships, and that was pre-COVID, right? That's irrespective of COVID. But I think you have to ask yourself, ultimately, is a friendship at work a real friendship? I mean, ultimately, if it comes down to a promotion between you and the other person, how strong are your bonds of friendship? And I think you always have to ask that question, right? Because you always also have to say, hey, I'm best friends with my manager. We used to go out for drinks. Everything's great. But at the end of the day, if I don't do a good job, I'm not getting the bonus. Or I can't rely on that manager to give me special favors in terms of work hours or flexibility in my schedule. If they're not able to do that for other people, you shouldn't be asking that of a friendship.
Right. Well, and that's a good point too. You have to be careful if you are friends with the manager and what that friendship entails.
Because I mean, from the company perspective, you're going to get in a boatload of hot water. And I'm not even talking about inappropriate friendships. I'm just talking about friendships and the appearance of favoritism.
Yeah.
Or someone who looks like you, as opposed to not giving the same benefit to someone who doesn't look like you.
Yeah.
I think you have to be extremely careful. So I think you have to have realistic expectations of what workplace friendships actually mean in practical terms.
And Jason McCabe, it's not limited to women.
Right.
This is everybody having these relationships at work. And I think, so I have a good friend who retired a couple of years ago, and she worked in a big office and she loved her friends. And she was like, oh my God, we're going to be friends forever. She really did think that. She retired and she moved far away, and she did see them for like the first year. And then she's like, I guess I wasn't really good friends with him. I was friends because we worked together.
Right.
And I think people can make that mistake, that the people, and sometimes you do find your best friend at work, and that's your best friend for life. That could happen. But I'm not trying to downplay that, but I just feel like, I think you're right. You have to be aware of what limitations that friendship has.
Right.
And maybe it's because you're with them all the time.
When I think if you're aware of what you should and should not be asking of that friend, you're preserving the friendship. You're avoiding the awkward discussions. You're avoiding imposing on a managerial type of relationship. And you will be friends for years and years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so you've been to some of these Zoom happy hours with other professionals. We've done a couple of them for my office. We've done some Zoom things. What
could possibly go wrong?
Wait a minute. Is it you mean it's like being at college, these kids at college right now who are at frat parties and someone records things that happen? You mean it can't be like that, right?
So in the Law Journal this week is an article about an increase in sexual harassment, even though people are working in a remote environment. And essentially what company lawyers are seeing these days are claims that people are saying inappropriate things on Zoom. People are more casual in their work environment. And so you really have to be cautious about sort of how you're dressing, how you're appearing. And honestly, you don't even have to hit the record button on Zoom. You can record what somebody is saying if they're saying something inappropriate in a drunken moment. You can record it on your phone. You can screenshot. And besides, you probably have other people participating in the Zoom happy hour. Whereas if it were a workplace happy hour and someone makes a comment to you privately,
yeah,
how are you, it's harder to prove that one. Now you've got like 36 other witnesses all in the Zoom call.
And do you remember when Zoom calls first started and that poor girl went to the bathroom on a Zoom call? Like somebody was recording that with their phone.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that was a friend of hers at work. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like it's a tricky thing. And Amanda brings up a good point. It's an additional dynamic when one friend is the owner and one's the employee.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult. I'm surprised. So, we have a bunch of clients and so, we talk to all the owners, and I'm always surprised when one of the owners is really good friends with one of the employees, like really good, like they hang out after work and stuff.
Yeah.
Because
I've talked about a friend of mine who's a law firm owner, and she's fantastic. And she has an associate who comes to every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every holiday. And I think it's so great because my friend has invited me to every holiday, and we spend every holiday with her. But I've always wondered about the dynamic of having an employee who is a part of your family circle. I wonder about it, but maybe it's fine.
What's wrong? Do we just think of all the bad things? Is that what it
We're
is?
horrible people.
Because I have to tell you, my team always says like, oh, here comes doomsday. Because I do. I think like, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I would think, so what happens when, if something happens and you need to break up, or the person needs to, what if that person wants to go work for another firm? What if they have a great opportunity? What are they not going to do it because they're friends with you?
Well, the thing I think it's unique to these two individuals. They've actually figured out a fantastic balance in that friendship and in their sort of the way they respect each other. Yeah. I think they've reached that, right? It took years. You don't just sort of jump into that. But you're right, Allison. They leave you. I know, we've been there. So.
Well, and I think though too, so the friendship thing at work, and I don't know, I've had that where I've had friends, and and maybe it's because people, assume that I work from home, that I can chit chat during the day. Like, I'm cool, let's talk about work, but let's talk about friendship stuff and hanging out together after work.
Right.
Like I only got so many hours during the day. And it really created a rift.
Yeah.
So, and it was too bad too, because it was something I actually didn't even know how to address it. Like, how do you address that where, you're talking about work and then they start talking about, other things like, oh, hey, this weekend we're going to do this. And what are you doing? And you're like, oh, I can't talk about that right now.
But, I think you have to, so that's part of, when you talk about networking, it's all relationship building. And I think you have to do that. I think you have to talk about everyone's question now is, how's the family? Everyone safe? Yeah. Everyone okay? Did you get the vaccine yet? How are your kids back in school? And I will spend the time to do that, to have that conversation, because that's part of building the camaraderie.
True.
So yeah, I think it's
there should be a balance.
Yeah, but it is a balance. And then you feel like, I recently, I don't know if I told you about this, but I had this experience of a lawyer on the other side talking to me about, he picked up the phone, wanted to settle a case, and then spent 15 minutes berating me for why I wasn't settling it. And I thought, boy, I've never really had a great conversation with you. But for me to settle this case, I have to go back and convince my client of something. And when you treat me like this, and you didn't spend the time to sort of develop the connection and the rapport, how likely do you think I am to do that? It's just not going to happen. Did I beat him yet? Soon, Denise. And it was the sense of, he wouldn't let me get a word in edgewise. He was being overbearing. And I thought, wow, you missed relationship building 101, which is part of negotiation.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It is absolutely a central theme in being able to bring parties to middle ground, even though both sides are not happy.
Yeah.
But if lawyers can't be respectful of each other and, throw each other under the bus and things like that, then, how far do you think you're going to get with this process?
Exactly. Rosie said, as an entrepreneur, these challenges are echoed in her relationships and friendships with clients, and wanting to ensure a friendship call doesn't feel like a business call or a networking call with them. That is such a great point, because I have some clients who I've become friends with. Like we go to their birthday parties. Like I love them. And they were like some of my first clients. They've been clients of ours for almost 10 years. And I have calls with them just to check in, see how they're doing, just for the heck of it. And it's true, if you build those relationships, you can have those phone calls and they don't feel like networking or a business call. It does feel like a friendship call, just saying like, hey, how are you doing? And I really mean that.
You know what, rather than leaving you, they'll pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, Alisa, so this happened.
Yep.
And I was wondering, can we figure out a way to resolve that?
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to, hey, I found somebody else, so transfer my books.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's true. And I think that relationship goes a long way when you put effort into it. And I think the same is true for your team. Like there's a balance between having your team feel like this is all business, or you're building that relationship with them. There was a really good quote that good leaders don't lead people, they invest in the relationships, or they take care of people.
Right.
And it was really good. And we had our monthly meeting with our team yesterday. And one of the things that we went through is I went through this past year, everything we've been through. We listed all the things that happened. And I thanked them, because you guys, they put up with a lot this year, both at home and at work, and all the things that went on. And I needed them to know that I really appreciated them sticking it out and telling them that for 2021, I want to focus on them. Right. I want to make sure that they have a work-life balance. And I think that goes a long way with developing a relationship with your team, where I think it develops that friendship or caring relationship.
Right.
Beth, where the caring relationship fits in.
Right. So Beth makes that point, right? She had an associate that left for more money, but came back, because more money does not necessarily mean better work environment. Yeah. But I want to talk about the point Gabriella makes. And I think it's really, really important point, where friends pick up the phone and call for advice that she would normally charge for. Right? This is advice that she usually pays for, or that people pay her for, but because of the friendship relationship, it's being expected that you'll give it for free. I think lawyers encounter this all the time, because
doctors too. Doctors too. Look at my elbow. You're a doctor. Can you look at my elbow?
Yeah, and it's this sense of, it's just a quick question. Can you answer a quick question for me? Yeah. And as any of the lawyers on this chat will tell you, there's no such thing as a quick question. You're actually committing malpractice if it's a quick question. There's no straightforward answers. Yeah. So should we be really expecting that of our friendships? And I will tell you, I will freely give advice, but I don't do it when I feel like it was expected of me.
Yes.
Right? That's a weird psychological quirk.
It is. No, and I agree, because someone who says to you, hey, I have to ask you a question. I need to pay you for this though, or says that up front, makes you real, like, they value what you do. Right. They value your advice so much that they're willing to pay for it, even though you're friends. And I think that goes a long way. I really do.
Tell you a quick tip with me. You do that, I automatically, if you're a friend, I'm going to be like, no, I'm not going to charge you for this. Right. But the fact is, you showed me that I was valued and respected. And that matters. Right. So that's another way to sort of preserve your friendships and sort of have a basis of respect.
See, now we're getting down to it. That's what it is. It comes down to respect for the other person.
Yeah.
And I think, with your work relationships, is having that respect. finding that level of respect that you can have for the other people.
Yeah. The other thing we didn't talk about yet, and I really, I have to say, just as a word of caution, you have workplace friendships and you hang out and you may even travel together. You go to conferences together. Be careful how much you share of your personal life. I feel so silly even saying that, because you're really limiting, you're limiting the parameters of your friendship and relationship. But I think you have to be careful.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
When I go to conferences, I usually take someone from my team. And I have taken people that have overshared.
Yeah. And I have to say, especially you as the manager, that overshare is always information now that you, we'll call it arsenal, but it's really in your brain. You can't unsee it.
Yeah, you can't unring a bell.
Right.
Yeah, no, it is. It gets stuck in your head, and I agree. And I think that's something you need to seriously consider.
Yeah.
Err on the side of caution. Oh, you can always share it later. You know what? I was actually talking to somebody about this. Like, if you're thinking something and you're not sure, hold on to it.
Yeah.
And if it still seems like a good idea, like tomorrow, then maybe it is.
Right. Right. Just follow your instincts. Right.
Yeah, but sometimes your instincts are to share.
And honestly, like, you travel for conferences, or you're on Zoom happy hours, and there's alcohol involved, and you're sort of less inhibited, right?
Yeah.
And so if you start talking about, with your manager about your marital problems, that manager is automatically drawing the conclusion that you are distracted in your life.
Yeah.
So it's not fair. It's not legitimate. You may still be doing a fantastic job, but you've created an impression. I think you need to be cautious of that.
I know. And there is a fine line though, between sharing that information and letting your company know that you need help.
Right.
So we had a situation where someone on our team shared with us something very, very upsetting. It was in the middle of COVID, and she had someone in her family who had some was having serious issues, and they had to be committed. And she told us this, and I'm so glad that she told us, because it made us more empathetic to what she was going on and allowed us to support her. And that was really good. And I just wonder if other places would have reacted the same way.
No, cultural counterpoint. In many cultures, East Asian, South Asian, there's this sense of mental health issues aren't real. And
Really?
why is that my problem? And don't, oh, you dropped the ball on an assignment. Oh, it must be because, you're just,
because your mind is elsewhere.
right. I think you just have to be so cautious.
Yeah, I know it is. It's just that fine line of like, what can you say? What do you share? And I mean, it is, and we do tend to make a judgment, like you said, on what's happening. All right. So have you developed a thick skin to things? You're a lawyer. I think you have to, right?
Absolutely. After the first few times where people would hear I was from India and commented on how well I spoke English, yeah, you start to like let that roll off your back.
Are you serious?
And in a totally friendly, whatever. But you're sort of like, oh, okay, I can either be offended by this, or I can just move on and leave it alone. So you absolutely develop a thick skin, but I think you also have to, so I'm presenting at a CLE today that is about sort of what is expected of us as lawyers under the rules of professional conduct, right? So we have an obligation for zealous advocacy to our clients, but are you compromising that when you speak out on a diversity issue, when a judge is inappropriate in a comment or treats you differently, and you go to the presiding judge on that, are you compromising your case? And
Wow.
an attorney does something inappropriate, how are you compromising your case? For instance, when this attorney was berating me,
Yeah.
have I compromised my client's abilities to resolve this case by not putting up with this person's nonsense? So there's a delicate balance. I think, you really, from the context of, being a woman of color, being a woman in the legal profession at all, I think we're constantly making decisions about, is this the hill I'm going to die on? If I raise this issue, how does it impact my client? And so we come second in everything. But has that moved the ball in the legal profession or any profession, right? Where you always say, all right, I'm going to develop a thick skin about this.
Mm-hmm. I think I totally agree. Personally, everybody knows I have 6 kids, and I've had people say very rude things to me, like, don't you know how birth control works? Do you not have a TV? That one was my favorite. Do you not have a TV? And all I did was laugh, because I thought, I've read this book, The 4 Agreements, and one of the things it says is it's not all about you.
Right.
And I absolutely, it says when people say stuff, it's their own stuff coming out.
Right.
So that's the way I just take it. And I have another friend who has 5 kids, and she's the stuff that gets said to her too. I thought, really? Why are we calling judgment? Like, it's not like, her and I can't afford these kids, or it was just amazing to me. But
Amanda raises a great point, right? Does setting a boundary result in a female professional being labeled as cold?
Yes.
My God, I think you hit it right on the head, right? So we're flirty if we're too friendly.
Oh, yeah.
We're cold and distant and a bitch even, right? Like, so I'm sick and tired of us being defined by these like single words. And honestly, it's
I'm okay.
women doing it too.
Smart. We'll be defined as smart. How's that?
Smart. That's right.
Awesome. I hate to cut us off because we're having fun. But next time we're going to be talking about managing personal relationships with respect to your business commitments. Where you need to work late and you don't want to make dinner, getting your partner and your family's buy-in, help with kids going to the doctors and things, and just trying everybody to have buy-in and having them see you as more than just mom. It's great seeing everybody. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and we'll see you next Thursday.